Brian Waldron. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
What's going on? Yeah, I'm happy to be here, you guys. What's going on?
So can you tell the Dreamers a little bit about you and what you do?
My name is Brian Waldron, aka Brian MNKN on Instagram. I'm an event space owner. We've got about 7 locations strung throughout Brooklyn and the Bronx. Here in New York City, I've been doing it about 4 years, and I've been blessed to be able to do a couple million off this game. So I'm definitely here to just share some game, share some wealth, and just share some positivity.
Well, we can't wait to learn more from you. So how did you get started in the event space?
So it's a funny story, actually. I used to be a bar back, working behind the bar at an Italian restaurant. Because out of school, I was just trying to make money fast. So I was just like, look, I go to an Italian restaurant, that's cash every day. I could go do that. So I started off making like $350 a week. And I always had that millionaire mindset. So I'm just like, yo, there's more to be made out here. I'm seeing the servers making like $1,000, $1,200 a week. Asked my manager if I could get that server position. They're just like, nah. So I'm just like, I'm gonna put things into my own hands. So around that same time, I applied at another restaurant nearby. And unfortunately, I had to take the bus like 3 hours to get to work. So I got another job at this other Italian restaurant, and they gave me the position of server. And they gave me the position, and before I know it, I just start picking up on it really good. And I'm making like $1,200, $1,400 a week. Around this time, I'm like 22, just finished college. So also around the same time, we had just moved back to Queens. My mom had just got a house in Queens, and she was, real tied up with the house and things like that. But she was also running a smaller location here in Brooklyn. So I'm just like, hey, while you're busy, I could go and operate the small space, because people would come by, and it was like a little community room type of thing. And people would be like, hey, do you have like a little kids party or whatever the case would be? And she's just like, yeah, sure. So I started to run it for her, and I'm seeing the whole game. Mind you, I'm a server working all day on my feet for like $200 a night. People are paying $500, $600 for a couple hours at a venue. You don't even have to be there, just open and close. So eventually I'm just like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna get my own. So I'm staying at home at the time. I'm just stacking my bread, working 6, 7 shifts a week at the Italian restaurant. I'm stacking. Eventually after a year, I save up $30,000, and I'm just like, I could get my own space. Cool. So I start looking at my own space, look at 1, look at 2. And then by the 3rd one, I'm just like, this is the one. It was right here on Fulton Street in Brooklyn. For everybody, shout out all my New York people. It was about 2,300 square feet. I still have it to this day, 1542 Fulton Street. I had put my entire life savings into the spot, because at that time, nobody's teaching about this stuff. I'm just figuring it out as I go. So I get my first spot. I dump my entire life savings into it. Wow. I'm like, I got to make some money. I got rent due on the 1st. So that's when I first start playing around with Instagram ads and promo, and just like really kind of getting my name out there and things like that. Well, my name of my company, Mannequin, out there. And I'm just like, yo, what's going on, guys? My name is Brian Waldron. I'm a 22-year-old entrepreneur. We got this package going on. Get the venue, get the chair, get a table. It was like $800, $900 or something like that. But people started coming through the door.
You say 800 to 900 a night?
For the night, including a chair and including a table. It was wild. I couldn't do something like that now, but you have to do what you got to do. So that same week, I made $4,000. Mind you, it would take me like a month to make that kind of money before. What I do at that point is I start developing more inventory. I start getting bigger and bigger packages. Let me add some tablecloths. Let me add this. Let me add that. To the point where it's like a full service, all you need right here in one spot, one-stop shop type of thing. So eventually I make $10,000 in a month, $15,000 a month, $20,000 in a month. And so I eventually get my 3rd location on Ashford and New Lots right here in Brooklyn. So now I have my 3rd location. Now we're doing like $40,000, $50,000 a month. So we started doing like $40,000, $50,000 in a month. We get 2 more locations right here in Brooklyn, July 2021. And then we started having $100,000 months, $90,000, $80,000, $100,000 months. And it's just been up since then. So we just recently acquired 2 more spaces in the Bronx, and we're in the process of purchasing a building in Philadelphia to get another 2 locations. So it's been a very tumultuous journey, but rewarding all the same. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
So before we get into you making 6 figures a month with your event spaces, can you talk to me a little bit more about even the process? So when you get that first space, did you buy it? Did you rent it? How did that go?
A great question. So a lot of people think you actually have to buy the building. So what we did is we just leased it out. We just paid rent. So we'd find a space, we'd run a market comp analysis, which is something that I teach all my students. We see kind of what's going on in the area, like the average rent, the average selling price. And then we determine like, all right, cool. Hey, I didn't know any of this at the time, but just kind of like in hindsight now, this is what we do. But at that time, yeah, we just found a realtor, found a good spot, negotiated the rent concession, which is free rent. That's just another point that anybody who wants to get into the game, always make sure that you're trying to get some free rent. The landlord will either A, do some of the renovations for you, or B, they will give you time to do it yourself. Like they'll give you 2 months rent concession, 3 months rent concession, which is just free rent. For example, on the Bronx location that I just got, I have 3 months free rent. I have a 5-year lease, but 3 months free rent. You just lease out the space and you just start building it out. But I always recommend getting at least like a 5-year lease because you don't want to put in all this money, all this infrastructure, and you got to be out in a year. It's not like an apartment. So that's how you get it done.
And so what are some of the other ways that you spent that money that you had besides just renting the space? There are more expenses involved, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you wanted the exact breakdown for that original location, Fulton, we put about $40,000 in. So it was $11,000 to acquire the space, which was the security, the moving costs. So all the numbers are, this is like a case study. Like these are the exact numbers for that specific space. But I have mentees, I have students who took my knowledge and they got better deals or they got more money or whatever the case may be. But this is just a case study on exactly how we did it. So it was $11,000 to acquire the space. The flooring that we did was about $16,000. So now that's what, 27,000. The paint and everything, maybe like another 2 grand. So that's 29,000. Furniture, tables and chairs was like 4 grand. So that's 33,000. And then to do the lighting and everything was like another 5,000. So that's 38,000. And then we got like, like some light sheetrock, bar, tables, things like that. It was another $1,500, $2,000.
So you're 22 years old, you dumped $40,000 on
Yeah.
this event space. How did you know it was going to work?
I didn't. I was just all in. And that was one of the biggest things that like I tell people when your back is against the wall and you burn that bridge, you ain't got no choice but to make it work. So I just at that point, I just believed in myself more than anything. Sometimes you just gotta really just bet on yourself and be like, all right, cool, look, listen, it's gotta work or it's gotta work. If it don't, then I'm back at the restaurant, things like that was a good deal. But I'm betting on myself at the end of the day, that's gonna work. And whenever I put that gear switch in my mind, that just I'm all in on this. I'm not half stepping. I'm really all into this thing. It's full blown. Once you bet on yourself, it's a different type of grind, 100%.
So when you have an event space, do you just rent it out or do you also organize events?
My company, we don't organize events. Like we don't do our own events. We just rent out the space. But we also do provide certain add-ons like decor. It's so funny. We're experimenting with a new package right now where it's like full decor, cake, treats, but we're also going to include like soft drinks, ice, really make it like a no-brainer for the client, for they could just come in and add whatever little knickknacks they want to add, and then that's it. They're good to go.
Got it. And so when you first started, so you had quit your job or you were kind of managing that and the job?
So that's a great question. I actually got fired. So at the beginning, the first, if I want to give you the exact timestamps, so I started October, I want to say 2017. October 2017, I started at that restaurant and I got fired August 2018. It was maybe about 4 months and then I got fired. But at that time, it was interesting because the thing about it is like around this time I had my third location. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just be all in on the business at this point. I wasn't gonna try to look for another job. Actually, I did try to get my job back, but I didn't go. I was just like, whatever. I'm gonna really just go hard on the business. And then it worked out so beautifully, it worked out so perfectly because the thing about it, now that I'm 100% dedicated to this business, to this being, there's no excuses. It's full foot on the gas, take it all the way through. And I feel like a lot of times people, especially when we're half stepping, it's really hard to see results because the thing about it is that you got that backup plan. Once you have that backup plan, you're not going to go as hard. You're not going to go as hard. But when you know, like, all right, cool, I got kids to feed, I got a family to take care of, or like you got something really behind you. It's like me, for example, me personally, like I pay my mom's mortgage now. I don't have kids myself, but like I pay my mom's mortgage now. So it's just like I can't fail. I can't because I have other people riding on this. I have other people riding on me, betting on me. So when I take things to another level, I really want people to understand. It's personal with me because I have a family to take care of. I got bills and stuff to take care of. Like I can't stop. I can't stop. So when people see us do $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in a month, it's not competition with anybody else but me. It's just me taking things, and it's almost like a double-edged sword. Like I was talking to my mom the other day about it. She's like, "You push yourself a little too hard." I'm just wired that way, and honestly, it's not the greatest thing. This is just a transparency moment. It's not the greatest thing, but it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me always striving for another level. It makes me make some dumb mistakes as well, but it always just keeps me pushing to like the next level. How can we get to the next level? So it's a blessing and a curse, but it's a blessing first.
What did you go to school for?
I went to Baruch College for real estate investments, minor in communications.
So when you went to college, did you always want to be an entrepreneur or?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a kid. It's so funny. My first taste of money, I remember it was yesterday, is I don't know if you're familiar with Yo and Pokemon. It's trading card games. Yeah, there you go. So when I was in middle school, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I remember I was on the bus one day. I was in like the seventh grade. So I was around 12. The sixth grader who's in the seat right in front of me, he's just like, yo, that's a blue eyes white dragon. But all my anime people know what it is. But it's basically like a really powerful card. Or at least at the time. I don't know what it is like now. But at that time, it's like a popular card. And he's like, I'll give you $20 for it. So to a 12-year-old, $20, or we're talking 14 years ago, is like $100 now. Maybe even like $1,000 now. It's just like, what? Give me that. And then literally, I had the rest of my cards. He was like, yo, I'll take that one. I'll take that one. I made $60 on the bus that same day in a matter of minutes. That was my first taste of money. And then the next day I brought my other cards and I'm making like $100 a day just selling cards. And then eventually competition steps in. Other kids see I'm making money with cards. They start bringing their cards. And then I see some other kids selling candy. I start selling candy. Then I start getting into selling sneakers. The entrepreneurial bug was just always in me, always on me. So when I got fired, that was just like literally all I needed to just shoot off. You know what I mean?
Earlier, you said when you don't have a plan B, you can totally focus on this plan A and make sure that you can make it work. But you were also 22 when you got started, no kids and all that stuff. So not everyone is able to just jump.
Yeah.
So would you say this is a good business to consider as a side hustle?
100%. And truthfully, that's the method I teach. So whenever I teach somebody to get into event space, I always show you how to completely automate the entire process. This is how you do it without having to work for it. This is how you set it up. Like literally, we just started a mentorship program where we're literally doing everything for our clients. We're getting the spaces for them, negotiating it for them. We're marketing it for them, getting it up to a certain point where it's just like, all right, cool, hand it off to you. It's done. Forget the getting fired part. When I started, I was still wrapping up my degree. When I had that first space, I was wrapping up my degree. It was my last semester in college and I was working and it was possible. Yeah, I didn't have any kids or a family to take care of, but I had obligations. I had schoolwork to take care of. I had chores at home, things like that. I had a job. So it's definitely possible once you situate it the right way. And the good thing about it is that it's a need-based business. The events-based business is a need-based business. So like you're almost guaranteed to get bookings. The same way people love to travel, people love to party. And it's more so than loving to party. It's like, all right, cool. If you're having a child, you got to have a baby shower. You're turning 30, 40, these milestone ages, you want to have a birthday party. You have a kid, you want to have a kid's birthday party, things like that. So it's definitely a need-based business. But everything that I teach is this is how you systemize it. This is how you automate it. I work less than 2 hours a week in my events-based business. Less than 2 hours.
6 figures a month?
Yeah, less, because the thing about it, we have a whole entire system. We have over 17 employees. We have an entire back end where like literally they're talking right now. We use Slack to communicate and we have all these different threads. These are news and announcements. This is admin. This is payroll. This is scheduling, where everything is broken down. My biggest thing, truthfully, you know how McDonald's is a burger company, but the business is really real estate? I have an events-based company, but my skill is really automation and delegation. So my biggest thing is like, I don't ever start a business or I don't ever set something up, I give myself another job. I always set it up in a way where other people can take care of it. So I have literally like a web of different employees and things like that in my events-based business, in my Airbnb business, in my real estate, whatever the case may be, so that every single task can be taken care of without having to come through me. And whenever I feel like something has to come through me too long, you have what you call a bottleneck. And the bottleneck needs to be immediately rectified. We have to find a system so that it doesn't happen. So nobody has to wait for me.
And so how profitable is the event-based business?
Yeah, so we average about an 83% profit margin. Yeah, because if you think about it, it's like the only expenses is rent and cleaning. That's it. That's like a base model. With ours is a little bit more complicated just because obviously to make it 100%, if somebody who's just coming into the game, I don't recommend you automating it all the way. And I teach my students the same thing simply because like, I want you to really learn the business. Before you automate anything, you should learn the process 100%. Or else how can you really automate something or teach something that you don't know yourself? So I always teach my students, one of my mentees, she's just like, oh, I want to get a VA. I want to get a VA. I'm just like, slow your roll, learn the business, the ins and outs, and then we can talk about a VA. VA is a virtual assistant. But when I talk about the profitability and things like that, my profit margins they're still around that much, but they're a tiny little bit less than other people's simply because I have more staff to make this whole thing automated. I have to have more staff. If I'm not doing something, somebody else obviously has to do it. I have events attendant, and plus I have multiple locations. So that's a little bit different. If I only had one location or if my locations were only just the space, that'd be a different situation. But now it's like, since we have different add-ons, we have chafing dishes, sound system, security, we need somebody there. We just need a little bit more of a back end. So that's the only reason why the profitability would really change. But for anybody who's just getting into the game, like you can have one employee and have run this whole thing.
So tell me about, why do you think people should consider the event space business as either a side hustle or even with the intention of turning it into their main source of income?
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, it's a need-based business. People need to have certain events for certain occasions. So, like I said, if you're having a baby, 9 times out of 10, you're having a baby shower, especially. And the thing about it is, especially in certain urban communities, like for example, I live in Brooklyn, right? In Brooklyn, we have a lot of high rises, we have a lot of complexes. It's impossible for me to have a party or a baby shower of 70 people in my 500 square foot apartment. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So I need to rent a space, hence a need-based business, which is why, especially here in Brooklyn, especially in the Bronx, Queens, whatever the case may be, in these metropolis cities, the business is so popular and the business is so profitable because it's need. The fact of the matter is, if you're living in an apartment complex, your apartment's 700 square feet, how are you supposed to hold 70 people in there? You either got to cut the guest list or you got to find a space. And when we come in, like, hey, look, listen, you can get a space for $1,500, tables, chairs, sound system, security. So to anybody who's on the fence about getting an event space, one, like I mentioned, it's a need-based business. Two, it's so easy to automate. Just look at how we do it. I mean, I run 7 locations. I'm the principal owner. I have a team, but like I'm the principal owner. It's not like I have different partners and stuff like that, but I have a team and they run the entire thing. So once you just have a good back-end system, it's good to go. Easy.
Can you talk to me about some of the bigger challenges that you face? Because you said when you started, you were just kind of figuring it out along the way.
Some of the biggest challenges that I faced when I was starting up is marketing. Marketing was the biggest thing, but then when you find a system and you just learn how to retain your audience, how to keep certain data, things like that, it becomes real easy. I can drop something today and I'll make $5, 10, $15,000 just off my email list alone. So anybody who's watching this podcast, I highly recommend, get an email list, get a text message list, because Instagram is cool, but remember, you want to really keep these people's data, get their email, get their phone number so you can constantly contact them. The biggest challenge now that I see with people is finding locations, because certain landlords, and it's the same thing with Airbnb, certain landlords, they're not hip to the idea of parties, which is why I always teach my students, like, look, there's a certain language, there's a certain verbiage you need to talk to these landlords with. You can't make it seem like you're going to be there 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is just a quick gem for anybody who's watching this podcast right now. If you're having trouble getting approval from a landlord, what you want to say is these 4 things. 1, we don't go past midnight. We don't do any overnight parties. That's the number 1 thing that you want to tell them right now, because the first thing landlords are thinking, oh, these people are going to be drinking and smoking 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, no, we don't do that. 2, we don't allow any alcohol in our premises. 3, you want to let them know that you're fully licensed and insured. They want to know that you have a business license, which is like a LLC, and then you want to have insurance. You need insurance regardless to get the property, but that's the 3rd thing. And then number 4 is we have security on premises at all times. That just mitigates the risk. So those 4 things right there will drastically increase your chances of getting approved by a landlord. But when it comes to finding a location, we have a full back-end system called a market comp analysis, like I mentioned before, where it basically surveys the entire area, seeing like, what's out there, what's a good location, what we should be potentially paying for our property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like that. So
You mentioned that you were involved in like Airbnbs. Tell me a little more about that.
yeah, so just diversification. I'm a huge believer in diversification. You take your active income and you get passive income, right? So like anybody who's working a 9 to 5 right now, you stack your money, you go invest in a space. Now you have 2 streams of income. You automate the entire space. So now even when you're working, you're making money from the event space. Then as the event space is profitable, you can take that money and go and get yourself an Airbnb. You can go get yourself a car on Turo. You can go get a rental property. You can go get a storage unit. You can go invest in stocks, whatever the case may be. So I just highly encourage everybody to really just diversify your portfolio. I mean, just like any other business, the event space has high seasons and low seasons. You don't want your lifestyle to change because the season changes. That's the biggest thing that I like to say. You don't want your lifestyle to have to change just because like it's a bad month or it's a low month or whatever the case may be. God forbid, but my event space can make no money this month and I'll be all right, simply because I have Airbnbs, I have property, I have car rentals, I have stocks, I have courses, digital products. So you just always want to keep a good balance, but it's on the road to wealth. It's along the road to wealth. You take one income, invest it, you put it into another income. You take that income, invest it, put it into another income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You just keep the ball moving. Money in the bank is dead. You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it invested.
So you mentioned that you have students, people that you teach about this event space. So tell me, it might be hard for you to give me that, but if you can give me like an average, right? Because I know it depends on where you're located and stuff like that. But on average, if someone were to put in 40,000 to get started, what could they expect to see after a year if they were doing this part-time?
Yeah, absolutely. So about on average, people do when they're starting up and they're, not really doing too crazy upsells or anything, about $10,000 a month. That's like, all right, cool. To me, if one of my students came to me like, yeah, like I just made my first $10,000 a month, I'd be like, all right, cool. You're listening to me. That's good. So on average, about $10,000 a month revenue. And then if you start to get real saucy with the packages and the upsells and you start to really sell, you could definitely do $25,000 a month. Easy. There's a lot of people who are like DM me and be like, I'm only doing $3,000 a month with my event space. How are you doing $100,000 a month? I'm just like, well, what are you selling? I'm just like, did you run a market comp analysis? Do you know what spaces are going for in your area? You got to see, because the thing about it, every person that's coming through your door, they're comparing you to other spaces in the area. So wouldn't it make sense to already have that information beforehand? Whenever somebody comes to our door and they say, oh, I'm going to see XYZ space, I'm going to go see that space across the street or whatever the case may be. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, they charge $2,500 for 8 hours of time. They're going to provide you with this time. I already know. It's my competition. I already know what I'm up against. And that's what helps me better able to formulate my packages and my pricing. Because the thing about it is, if I'm charging $1,000 for 1,000 square feet, everybody else is charging $500 for 1,000 square feet, I'm not going to get no bookings because the market said so. So that's why when it comes down to making this kind of money, you really got to do your research. Just like with everything, you have to do your research and you really have to know what's out there so you can better position your business. That's it. But yeah, if you're getting into it, $10,000 a month, $15,000 a month.
And that's at 83% profit margin?
So that's roughly, yeah, because the thing about it is that everybody's different. Like, I don't negotiate every single person's lease. So if you pay some super high inflated lease or whatever the case may be, your profit margins are not going to be that much. And obviously, if you're not selling, like I mentioned, like, you're not selling packages, you didn't do your research, then you're not going to have that income to boost those profit margins. So those are my profit margins. And if you follow my steps, you will have also similar profit margins. Your payroll, X amount of money, your VAs, X amount of money, then you sell at the certain level, then you'll make those similar profit margins, but not everybody doing it. So
I'm sure somebody's probably listening or watching thinking, okay, maybe I should get into this. If you could give me like steps that they should take to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I definitely recommend is driving around, looking for rent signs in your area, running that market comp analysis, searching for spaces on Google, on Craigslist, on Crexi, on LoopNet. Those are my top search engines right there. So go and find your space, negotiate that lease, and then you start running and marketing. I have it all listed out in my program. So anybody who is ever interested and just kind of wants it like step by step, just go to myowneventspace.com and I have it right there. You can check that out there.
So I like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
You just tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
So tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Learn as much about whatever you want to put the money in before putting the money in.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
Personal development courses, mentorship programs, 100%.
Filling the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is?
Tool for success.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Just showing people that entrepreneurship shouldn't be looked upon as being a black sheep or being like a maverick or anything. It's literally the only way to truly separate yourself and build wealth. You're not going to get rich off a 9 to 5. You have to invest. You have to get your money in certain places that are paying you when you're not working for it.
All right. So Brian, can you tell our listeners where to find you?
Absolutely, guys. First of all, it's been an absolute pleasure. My name is Brian Waldron. I've had the pleasure of being here with Miss Anne-Lyse. You can find me on Instagram at Brian, BrianMNKN. That's my company, Mannequin. I'm not really on Twitter, so you're not really going to find me there, but definitely tap in with me on Instagram at BrianMNKN. I'm there.
Yeah. Thank you for stopping by.
Nah, not a problem at all. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.